Right, so this video then, we're going to go through a weird situation in which my dream intersects with reality in the real world, and then intersects with what I end up watching as far as a YouTube video. Okay, so this is where there's stuff being communicated, and who can think up these ways of these things being communicated to us? But this is how it comes through. So this one is the 9th of October 2024, and it's another, in inverted commas, coincidence. Okay, so I just woke up. Just woke up from a dream where I was walking around a market. So I was walking through a market sort of area in my local town. It's an undercover market, so it's got a roof to it, but it's just got market stalls within a big building. And I ended up bumping into somebody who I assumed actually was one of the preachers that I watch on YouTube. He's a street evangelist. It just looked a lot like him, and he was talking. He was talking with a friend. So he was with somebody, and he was just looking for a stall that was just a little bit further away from me, not very far off, but far enough off, because my eyes aren't brilliant anyway, but far enough off that I couldn't say 100% it was him, but I was at least up to 85% it was him. Okay, so it's a street evangelist guy. And where are we? So he was with a friend, and he was talking to somebody at the market stall. So he's just talking to them, and he basically found this stall was selling loads of witchcraft stuff. Okay, so selling, is it called Santa Muerte stuff? Which was it was all like skulls and candles and talismans and all of that kind of witchy, very very witchy occult stuff is what he found. And he was starting to he was gaining a small audience around him. So he was seen as, he was probably like looking to expose this stall, is what it felt like. I mean, he sort of does that, this street evangelism. He'll go into a shop, and he'll start saying, you do realise what this stuff is and what this means. And sometimes the people he speaks to goes, yeah, no, I really don't want to work here anymore. I'd much rather work somewhere else. And he sort of says, yeah, you're surrounded by witchcraft stuff that's just attracting demons. And he goes through and he sort of talks to him and says, you do realise what this is for, and this does. And you do realise that, this sage, you do realise that actually attracts demons. It doesn't push them away, it attracts them, And he's saying all this kind of stuff. And but that's what he does in his videos, this particular guy. Okay, so I'm seeing him, and I realise it probably is him, and that he's just going to expose this stall. He's just going to say, do you realise what you're doing here? You're leading people to hell. This is ridiculous. Anyway, as I got closer, I could see that it wasn't actually him, but it did look a lot like him. But they were still against what was going on. So these couple of guys were still against obviously what was going on and what they were selling, but it wasn't the street evangelist I thought it was. I moved out, so I ended up moving out of the area, and I picked up an item on one of these market stalls, and the item I was showing it to someone. It was like a barrel shaped. It was cylindrical in shape. And it had wrapped around it was like a rubber grip. So it almost reminded me of, when you've got like a coffee, you get a coffee from somewhere and you have that cardboard bit that wraps around it. Obviously that's for heat, but you can also get some, cups maybe that are heated ones, and they maybe put a rubber grip around it so it doesn't slip out your hand. That's what it kind of felt like. It was a little bit wider, I would have said, than a cup of coffee. A bit wider than a cup of coffee, but you could get your hand around it. So it's probably more like this sort of round rather than a coffee that'd be maybe more like that. So I suppose it doesn't look all that much different really, but it felt a little bit bigger than a coffee cup sort of thing would be. And where are we? Let's get back to it. Sorry. Yes, cylindrical in shape, almost like a can, but more barrel shaped. So it felt like it was its shape was slightly not just completely straight down. I don't know how to describe it. Barrel shape. I suppose. Yeah, what I'm saying is it kind of it was slightly wider in the middle than it was at the top. So that's what I mean by sort of barrel shaped, but it wasn't quite as extreme as I'm showing you like that. You know, it's just very subtle, but that's just how it looked. It was slightly kind of like that, which is, as I said, why I said barrel, you know, like a big steel barrel for alcohol. Yeah, it's wrapped up with this rubber sort of grip thing that was around it, and it reminded me of a car tire because the actual colour of this grip around it was kind of like I think it was like a dark grey or a black or something like that. And it had, I'm trying to look at this more than I am using my memory. It had this pattern on it. And all I could say was, it looked like, you know, like you've got a potter's wheel and they're spinning the mug or whatever it is and they're painting it. So they want a straight line. Obviously they spin it up and they just put it on and just hold it still and then it'll be a straight line all the way around. Or they want to put some patterning, they'll spin it and let's say they're trying to make patterns in the actual clay. Maybe they've got some sort of a tool, maybe they use their finger or whatever they use to make a pattern. It felt like that. It felt like this had almost been on a spinning wheel and they were using, I put here, where is it? Barrel shaped. It reminded me of a car tyre, so like the grips you get on a car tyre. But the pattern was like a little footprint going around it, which is really, really strange. So it's almost like the toes, let's say like your 5 toes of your foot going in, and then as I said, it's spinning, and so it would streak out these what these toes were. But you could still make out they were toes, if that makes sense. That's what I kind of thought it was, which is weird, obviously. Yeah, where is it? It was this toe being used and dragged to create a sort of, there you go, a sort of pattern to it. This is why I refer to it a bit like a car tyre, because all the car tyres have, you know, various different patterns that go across this thing. So that's why it kind of reminded me of a car tyre. But it looked like the toes, I said here, were pushed in, and then it was rotated on a potter's wheel, as I said. Yeah, that's what it kind of looked like to me, creating these lines from a static thing that's just been pushed into the clay. Anyway, so that's probably enough information on that, but that's what it looked like. So the person I was with corrected me and said, no, these are actual footprints that are going round. So there was actual footprints, and that's why I was picking up on the toes a bit more. But it also had some lines as well, and I was I guess I wasn't making the connection quite properly, but he was saying, no. These look like footprints going around. Okay, then the dream ends. Okay, really random. Some weird artifact that is not clear as to what it is at all. I mean, is it a drinking thing? Is it just something to display? I didn't even know what it was made of, to be honest. I can't remember what it was made of. Whereas, I think, what I was saying that, was it plastic? It might have been plastic, but I just had no idea what the function was. It was just really weird. And as I said, this guy just said, no, it's like 2 baby footprints that have kind of walked across this thing. That's what it is. I was like, okay. And so I wake up, okay? I wake up and I go downstairs. So it's just time to wake up now. I've gone downstairs and completely random, really random, right? I go over to the draining board, you know, again, we don't have a dishwasher, so we wash up manually. We put all like the plates in and stuff like that. I walked over to the draining board, and I'll show you what I saw. So I'm going to pause this, and then I'm going to explain. There you go. So this was the only thing that these two items were the only things in the drying up thing. Okay. Clearly baby footprints, and well, it's almost like a baby and an adult footprint, isn't it? And then you've got this thing. Okay, this is just like almost like a cookie cutter kind of thing. Happens to be almost exactly the same size, but that reminded me of the wraparound bit. Obviously, it would normally be a bit wider, but this cookie cutter's a bit shallower. But that's what it reminded me of was the cylindrical bit that went round the side, and that was the patterning. I was like, how weird. Yeah, so so that happens, and I'm like, what is that all about? Anyway, so I go, what happens? I woke up. Obviously, I see that it's the only thing. It's the only thing there. I was just like, how weird. I've just woken up from a dream that had baby footprints on it, and it was that sort of size. Oh yeah, I should have said that. It was that size. As I said, when I was sort of showing you, it's kind of a bit bigger than cup size, a little bit bigger, around about that sort of size though. And it's got baby footprints. And so I actually got to my wife, because she makes cakes. Occasionally, she makes cakes. Okay, so I kind of got upstairs and said to her, you know, well, I said, why have you got these baby things? Because what she used to do, you say, let's say it was a christening, you know, but new baby, and somebody might order a cake, and she would make a cake for them and put some baby footprints on it. You know, they're little sort of things where you put some icing in, push it out, and then you've got a little mould. Okay, because obviously you could see that was a mould. Okay, so that's basically what's happened. So I'm thinking, like, no one's had a baby born. Why have you even got that mould out? It was like really random. Okay, and I said to her, like, why have you got that silicone mould out downstairs? That, you know, the two-sided footprint thing. And she said, oh, I've used it for a birthday cake. Oh no, sorry. I've used it for the birthday cake. And I was kind of like, well, what? Why? Like, what? I said, that is so bizarre. I said it was the only thing in the drying rack, and that she had not even made a cake. She was going to, but she'd not even made a cake to even require it to be washed up. So it was like it'd been washed up, but she hadn't even used it. Very, very strange. Very, very strange. And as I said, the size of the mould, those actual footprints, I mean, you can't, I suppose you get a little bit of a sense of scale. They're even the same size as the footprints that are actually on the thing. Exactly the same size, right? So, oh yeah, sorry, I correct myself, sorry. I put on here, sorry, my bad. She had used it overnight, so she'd obviously woken up at some point. She does do that because she doesn't sleep very well. She had woken up at some point in the night while I was asleep, and only the cookie cutter got used. So that round, that greenish coloured thing, that was the only thing that got used, which was exactly the same diameter, circumference, diameter, yeah, the same size as the thing I'd just seen in my dream. The colour, oh there you go, the colour of it was grey. I mean, that was more of a greeny colour. And that could have contributed to me saying that it was a tyre. Yeah, but that may have been, I mentioned that obviously earlier before even reading this. I seem to remember the colour as being a kind of a grey. Yeah, and the other thing I'd mention as well is I had a radio controlled car once, and it had the wheels were of that shape. They were kind of wheels that you could squash together. So if you imagine like a Chinese lantern, I don't know if you ever made those as a kid, where you'd kind of wrap a bit of paper around and you'd fold it or something, you'd make slits in it, and you can kind of squash it. I don't know if you know what I mean by I said Japanese, didn't I? Sorry, Chinese lantern. That's kind of what this tyre was on this radio controlled car I used to have, because it was one that you could just throw it into any kind of environment and it bashed about everywhere, and the tyres were really good that it, you know, it was, yeah, just very, very good. As I said, the tyres were like that. So the tyres were these squashy in sort of tyres that had slits in them, and I think that was partially maybe why I was thinking tyres as well, because I was thinking of this controlled car. Again, that's probably where the plastic comes in, because the wheels were made of plastic with rubber on the outside, obviously for grip. So that could have been also the other connection. Radio controlled car, I mean, we're talking like 35 years ago at least, you know, when I've even thought about that car or anything like that, you know. But as I said, it just, bing, memory, here you go. This will explain things to you, that kind of thing. Anyway, so there's that, all right? So that's random. And it was actually to do with a birthday. And as I said, that she was gonna make a cake. I think what happened was she got up and she didn't actually do it in the end, but she was going to for a birthday. And the person's birthday, who that was, you wouldn't put footprints on there. It'd just be weird. It just didn't make any sense at all that would be in there. And as I said, just 2 items. I mean, there wasn't. As I said, there wasn't any like mixers. There wasn't there wasn't the mixing thing. There wasn't the bowls with all the cookie mixture or the cake mixture. There was nothing. It was just that. So as I said, she didn't even really do anything. So thoughts were, yeah, how utterly random it is that that this would be that you'd, as I said, I thought of it a little bit like a coffee cup. Like, why you would even have like footprints around a coffee cup is bizarre. None of it made sense. Obviously, I have no idea of the meaning. So at this point, I have no idea of the meaning. Okay, I'm writing the dream. I've got no idea of the meaning, other than that it wouldn't surprise me if I prayed, because I was asking for God to communicate with me, and I've always been quite open. I don't want to close down avenues. So it's like, any way you want to communicate with me, whether you talk to me, whether you come to me in my dreams, whether you put scripture in front of me that you want me to see, that you make it obvious that you want me to see, people coming up to me, I don't care. However you communicate with me, I'm open to it, And so I thought, oh, okay, this is just a way of God communicating to me. He's given me a dream, and now he's showing me reality. It's like, yeah, I know you're real, yeah, but what are you trying to communicate? Okay, so that's where I go with it next. So about 30 minutes later, after this has all happened, and I've written this down in my phone, obviously, straight away, so I don't miss any detail. I then write down, like, whoa, in my message. 30 minutes later, I'm putting on a YouTube channel, and I'm watching stuff, and it happens to be talking about the timeline of Daniel, the statue of Daniel. I have referred to this so many times now through my videos. The statue of Daniel, the statue of Daniel. My mate Dan's in a video. Oh, it's to do with end times prophecy. It's talking about the statue of Daniel. I've only found this out literally yesterday. I made this connection where, again, this happens sometimes. You've just got to like kind of collect all your dreams together and read them quickly, and then you start to see patterns. Or I've done word searches. This actually came up yesterday, where I did a word search because I couldn't find the dream that I was looking for that was to do with Jeep. So I just did a word search in all my dream notes, Jeep, and then it brought up the other dream, and I was like, yes, oh, it's part of it's a little like 2 lines of another dream that's completely different that I didn't obviously think of putting into a video because it was so minor, and I haven't filmed anything about it yet, and so that's one I did film today called the Green Jeep, and it all came together. So this is happening at a rapid pace, just so you know. Like the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks of me filming, I've been getting loads of connections of stuff that I just didn't know. And when I was writing this all down, all these dream journals, I was getting loads of revelation when I was writing it, and I was thinking, how did I not make these connections before? And again, things were connecting because I was putting in a word. Like a good example would be bridge, and then suddenly like 4 or 5 dreams come up with bridges in. I'm like, no way! I didn't realise I had so many dreams that had bridges in. That's just as an example, but that's really helpful to do it. I would have said, if you're logging your dreams, log them on your phone, log them in a book, because obviously if you lose your phone, you've lost your dreams. But equally, for word searches, that's a really good way to do it, and you start seeing patterns a lot easier. Anyway, so thoughts were, so 30 minutes later, I'm putting on YouTube, I'm watching a video, happens to be the timeline of Daniel the prophet, and the video is talking about the Antichrist being, so this person is saying that how the Antichrist is going to be Syrian, okay? Now, that doesn't mean literally the country we know of Syria right now, because the country of Syria right now, the territory and borders and stuff like that are very different to how they were in antiquity, and so in times gone by when these kind of prophecies were written. So Daniel, for example, would have been in the 500s BC, that sort of time frame. The land borders would be completely different, okay? So it's my belief that, and several others, that he's going to come from that kind of area. He's also referred to as the Assyrian, which is not the same thing, but that is also another reference that you have in the Bible, that the Antichrist numerous times is called the Assyrian. Anyway, and it talks about as it was mainly out of the people the actual physical people that destroyed the temple in Jerusalem in 70 AD. Yes, it was a Roman Empire, which is part of the Daniel statue. They're the legs of the statue. So if you imagine a man standing up, you've got the head, you've got the body, you've got the waist bit, and then you've got the legs, then you've got the feet. Okay, so it's a man, it's a statue, and they're made of different materials, which is actually signifying the different empires that will come. Okay, so you've got the gold of the Babylonians, you've got the Medo-Persians, which is the what's it called? The silver. Then you've got the bronze, which is the Greek Empire. Then you've got the iron, which is the Roman Empire. Then you've got the feet of iron and clay. So that's seen as being like the reformed or a fragmented Roman Empire. And even down to legs being the Eastern and the Western. What's it called? So I said that they were all made of iron. So the Roman Empire, the Eastern and the Western Empire. That's what happened. You know, yeah, things like that. So that's interesting. It's phenomenal. And sorry, the 10 toes, just jumping into that, represent 10 kings of the last sort of closing out of kind of empire history before the new empire that comes in, which is really the one that lasts forever, which is obviously God's kingdom on earth. Okay, so I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but okay. So about 56 minutes into the video. Oh no way. Okay, it's by this person, this dream journal, Ken Johnson. Okay, phenomenal. I've mentioned him. I don't think I've mentioned him by name actually. Ken Johnson. Okay, he does loads and loads of prophecy books, loads of extra biblical stuff like First Enoch, like Gad the Seer, like Book of Jubilees, like loads and loads of stuff. They're the ones coming to mind. I've got quite a few books. I just, you know, like what would you call it? Just kind of splurged all my, or, you know, kind of spent all of my money like for my Christmas and my birthday and everything. I was just like books. You know, that's what it was. That's my hobby. My hobby, I suppose, is reading about prophecies and scriptures, and it's very Christian focused. Okay. Anyway, used to be a bit more diverse. You know, kickboxing and stuff like that, but I've given that up now really. But I haven't got in like over a year, so that's pretty much given up, isn't it? So. Anyway, so this is a Ken Johnson who's talking about this. So he's about 56 minutes in. He's into this video. He's talking about the 10 toes. I was like, what? Talking about the 10 toes of the reformed Roman Empire. I'm like, 2 feet, 10 toes. What? So it's like my dream. We had feet in it. Now I've seen the silicon, what would you call it, mould, which has confirmed the dream, and that has the 10 toes, so it's confirming it. Okay, I get it, it's from God. Yeah, okay, I get it. And now I watch a video 30 minutes later, and it's talking about the 10 toes of the Roman Empire, or the future empire, which is 10 kings that give their, you know, they end up, all their power goes to the Antichrist, and that's the terrible stuff that comes. And this is Ken Johnson's view on this. He says that he refers to the clay as actually being the first empire that was before the head. So the head is the Babylonians, because of it's actually King Nebuchadnezzar that Daniel the prophet is actually giving the dream interpretation to the king, which and his the gold head is representative of him and his empire, the Babylonian Empire. So it won't talk about a previous empire because it's pointless to Nebuchadnezzar, isn't it? So it doesn't tell you about the previous one, but there is a lot of extra biblical stuff in different. In different books that refer to clay being Egypt, because the empire that was before them was the Egyptian Empire, and you did have the Assyrian Empire as well. But he tends to think that it represents Egypt. But what that means, I don't really know necessarily. He does. I don't think he qualifies it to specifically say that what does that mean? So the Roman Empire mixed with the Egyptian Empire, but what does that mean? I don't know. I don't really know. There's lots of thoughts and feelings on what that means. The miry clay, it's called. So it's clay and metal don't mix, do they? Not as a kind of non-solid. Sorry, not as a unless you kind of fired it in a kiln. It's not going to be even solid. It's going to be that kind of, you know what clay's like. Anyway. Oh yeah, and then for reference, so yeah, so in the end I find out more information. So it was a birthday cake that was being made, but it hadn't yet been made. But the toes feet didn't ever get used. They never got used. So I don't know what went on there. Sometimes if there's melting chocolate, that's being used in a cake, then if there's a bit of that left, then she might put it into a mould and then make some little moulds for the kids, to eat chocolate, that kind of thing. Okay, now the other reason The other reason that I decided to film this today was that I saw that mould in the washing up yesterday, and I've had to clean it up to bring it in to show it to you, because it was in there again, and it had some chocolate in it. But again, I've got no idea why. I haven't asked, so that's a little bit of a mystery really as to whether that's in there. So if I find out and there's something curious about it, I'll look into it. But there's certainly not a cake being made, and I don't think anybody's been melting chocolate or anything like that. But again, even if you did, why would you use the little footprints? So again, it's another confirmation. Well, again, maybe a coincidence, but I haven't actually seen it since that dream. So that's what I mean. I generally do a lot of the washing up. That was the last time it was used was when I'm talking about it in this dream, which is in October of 2024. It's not been used since, and now it comes up just I want to share the dream. Okay, so because it wasn't prophecy, because it wasn't end time stuff and all those kind of things, I've kind of put it to the back. I put it to the back a little bit, but because I'm just thinking of it. Oh, wasn't that weird? Where your dream intersected with life, and then and then it intersected with something you're watching, which confirmed why you've had this dream in the first place. Is to talk about Daniel's statues and the 10 toes, specifically the 10 toes, because it's the feet. The feet's the only thing that I'm being shown here, obviously with that thing, and that's the kingdom to come. Okay, the kingdom is coming. It won't be long before it's here. Okay, the 10 toes, and these are going to be nations, as I said, that are going to end up. The Antichrist will take the power of these 10 kings. Some of them, I think the majority of them give it willingly, but I think there's something about conquering as well. I believe he conquers some of them and gets some of those nations. But again, I'm not super clued up on it. So what I would say is look into that. Look into Daniel. I'll try and find the whole section, and I'll note the scripture. It'll be in the description. By the way, I don't mention it that often. Always look at the description. Obviously, we'll have the hashtags on there just to sort of link it in with other types of subject matter. But always look at the description, because if I've mentioned scripture, it's almost always, even sometimes in passing, I might say something like, "Oh, this happened, or that happened." I don't know what the scripture is. It might be, but I then quickly googled it. Oh, it's Matthew this, that, and the other, and then I'll put scripture cited but not spoken, or I'll say something like that. So you know what that scripture is, so you can look it up for yourself. Again, when I say stuff, always check it. A lot of the stuff I'm just going off, I'm flowing, in my where my brain is going with these things. But always look them up. And it's just, as I said, I have read the whole Bible the whole way through, and I think I've read it. I'm not sure if I've read it twice. I'm not sure, but I've been through the New Testament and that section like several times now. But I've also been doing all the extra biblical stuff. So there was a big period of time where I was going through all of these other types of prophecies and things like that, which actually I don't ever let kind of come into anything that we talk about, other than me just citing it there. I don't even know what book it was from, to be honest, but it was a scripture in there. There's another scripture as well which talks about, and this is like in a Dead Sea Scroll, so it's like 200 BC, 300 BC, something like that. That the scroll comes from, and it's been directly from those scrolls. Those scrolls get scanned and archived, and then you get authors, that can go on and actually look at those scrolls, and if they know the Greek, then they can translate them. And Ken Johnson is one of those. Okay, so he does that. He translates them, puts them into books, puts them in modern English so we can understand them. And that was one of them. So one of them what talks about two religions that are going to be prominent in later days. Okay, and it talks about one of them that its emblem is the crescent moon. Oh, where do we see the crescent moon? Well, big world religion. Okay, yeah, we've got that. And it talks about another one that will be domiciled, as its main point of, if you had to a fixed point for it, the point would be Rome. Okay, now at that point in time, I don't even know if Rome was even really much of a thing back then, but Rome obviously started very, very small and expanded, obviously became an empire, but it did start small. But I don't think it was really a big thing necessarily at that time when this scripture is supposed to have been talked about. But again, it may well have been, so don't quote me on that. But it talks about a religion that is is based out of Rome specifically, and obviously we would know that as the Roman Catholic Church, wouldn't we? Of course. And when it talks about, and it's just so you know, that is separating it from Christianity. Okay, it's not talking about Christianity specifically in this prophecy. What it's talking about is two religions that somewhat come together. They come together. They come together, and some people have kind of coined the phrase Chrislam, in that it's a combination of Christianity and Islam. And we're seeing that. I mean, the last Pope, obviously we've got a new Pope now, but the last Pope was talking about how there's like multiple ways to heaven. Like, wait a minute, what? What are you talking about? We've all got, we're all like the same God, and we all love God, we all have different ways, all have our different religions, and yeah, there's loads and loads of stuff. Again, I won't go into all the detail around that, but he was kind of almost like trying to build a bridge between religions, which doesn't make any sense. But that's what he was doing. Obviously, he's not with us now, but who knows what will happen in the future. But as I said, that's an extra biblical one. It is talking about prophecy. I don't know whether it has predicted anything else that would give it validity. I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, hopefully this was all interesting. It was one dream, but it's taken half an hour because of all the other bits and pieces. But normally a multiple dream, one I aim for about half an hour, and a single dream, ideally 15 minutes, but normally whatever I aim for, it doubles. So there we go, single dream, half an hour. There we go. Got to reset my expectations, I think, and yours maybe. So hopefully there was aspects of that will obviously get you looking into prophecy a bit more. Explore all there is to explore around the statue of Daniel. You will be blown away, especially the Greek Empire. What was written in Daniel about the Greek Empire. To be fair, at that time, the Greek Empire was like 300 and something BC. Daniel was writing this in the 500s BC, so Greece wasn't a thing. It wasn't like a big empire and stuff like that at the time. It certainly wasn't rising to power. Obviously, that came later. But he's talking about Greece, and he's talking about it to such a level that is like, it's like somebody who's written the history books today is then telling it back to you. It's to the point where people say there is no way. There's no way this is prophecy. It's way too accurate. And then obviously he talks about the other empires and stuff like that. But the Grecian Empire is one that is phenomenally detailed. Really, really detailed. Okay, look into it. It does talk about future prophecy, and it talks about all sorts of things around goats and sheep. And he has two visions. One is the statue and one's around animals, and they're all saying the same thing. Obviously it's very symbolic, it's a dream, but yeah, please do look into that. I'll try and find the section that maybe talks about that and put that in. But again, if I forget to do that, please do just look up what's Daniel's prophecy around a statue, and then that will start, you'll go down the rabbit hole of looking into that. But it's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Okay, hopefully you've hung around to the end, and I will see you on the next one. Okay.